Happy Mardi Gras, guys. This is Chuck Phillip. Welcome to another edition of Southern Stories. I'm standing in front of the wall that I was standing in front 27 years ago doing an interview with Darwin Singleton. Since 1997, I was the president of the Crew of Spaniards, which was the parading organization here in Spanish Fort. Interestingly enough, this was going to be a Daphne parading society. We went to Harry Brown at the time to ask him if we could have our parade there, and he said he was not too keen on doing that. And so we went to Mayor Ray Carter, who was the mayor of Spanish Fort at the time, and so he invited us with open arms, and that's how we became the Crew of Spaniards, based on the Spanish Fort here, being put here in 1781. Now, it wasn't too long after we established the Crew of Spaniards that Daphne started having their parades, but the first Eastern Shore Parading Society was the KOERs. They're in Fairhope, and I think they established sometime in the middle 80s, around 84, 85, something like that. And since that time, there's been quite a few organizations that's popped up all along the Eastern Shore, and even further south all the way down the Gulf Shores. But Mobile itself is the homeland and birthplace of Mardi Gras, and many people think it started in New Orleans. That's not true. And so I've been a part of Mardi Gras my entire life, and so have my parents, and even had my own tux. And like I said, I was the president of this organization for 2 years. It was a co-ed organization, and it was a little bit challenging as a result of that. But we got through all those dramas that we went through. I think I learned more about women in the 2 years I was the president of this organization than in my entire life. So maybe that's a good thing. But we had a lot of fun. We had a really cool parade route that we had. It worked out pretty well. It's kind of short, but because we did it twice, it made it about the same length that you probably do one in Daphne. I mean, it was pretty long when you consider if it doubled back on itself. And we borrowed our floats from the Conde Cavaliers. We didn't borrow them, we actually rented them from them. And they were really helpful in getting us started as well, too, because I didn't know up from down when it came to running a Mardi Gras organization. So there was thankfully people that in the Crew of Spaniards that were in other organizations that helped me, along with the board, actually put this thing on, because we paraded the first year, which is unheard of, and we would have never been able to do that had it not been for, the people helping us out that was in other organizations at the time. So keep watching, guys. This is where it gets interesting. All right, guys. Well, this is how our parade pretty much went. Like I said, we rented the floats from the Conde Cavaliers, and they would bring them over, and we would go into the 225 entrance of the Spanish Fort Elementary School, and then we would go all the way to the ballpark closest to 31 and have them pretty much lined up to how we were going to come out with them. And then we would load our floats up the night before. We'd have a guard there to watch the floats overnight, and then we would proceed our parade the next day. Now, the first parade we had antique cars to be the marshals of this, and also the Grand Marshal, of course. Now, thankfully, the Grand Marshal's car didn't break down, but I remember going down the route, and all of a sudden, Apache, we actually had a real genuine Indian in our group, and he was a cool cat. I really liked him. He come running into the float and all huffing and puffing, his uniform his costume all kind of shredded a little bit. He says, "Man, I've been trying to catch up to y'all. My car broke down." So we had some comical things go on during our first parade, but at least it was overall a real good success. We really didn't know how many people was even going to show up for this thing. And fortunately, we had a large turnout. Now, I'm going to tell you something else too, guys. This is where I met Chico, the drummer, and I've even played in bands with him over the decades. And he is one cool cat too. I mean, he actually has his own show now, so if you ever get a chance to go see him, go do it. And in fact, as luck would have it, I went to the Apollo Mystics Ladies Parade just a few days ago, and lo and behold, here comes Chico on the float. So he's been doing these parades for a long time. He did our first parade, and I think all of ours as well. And I made contact with him the other day, and he said he's been doing this for about 30-something years. I think the polka dots was the first one he did. And so really, he's become the face of Mardi Gras, in my opinion, kind of like Dot Moore was back during the 60s and 70s. I think Chico is the highlight of every parade. So, guys, if you're not using Chico, you should. So he's a good entertainer and a great drummer and a good guy. But I'll go back to getting focused on what we're at hand here. So we would line this thing up, and we'd had a pretty decent route. It doubled back on itself, so we would pull out of this thing, and with the marshals leading off, an antique car, and we'd go all the way to the top of the hill, and then make a U-turn and come back. So it was a pretty long route, and people would stand on both sides of the road, including the median. So, they caught quite a bit of throws as a result of doing that. Now, after our parade was over with, put the floats back up, and then we would have buses there that would take us down to Daphne Bayfront Park. That was a real good place to have our ball. I hate to see that the Daphne Bayfront Park has been torn down, that building there. It used to be a bar, I think, back in the 80s. But the city of Daphne has renovated this park down there. It's really nice. If you haven't been down there, go check it out. Hopefully they'll build something else back there. But that was a perfect place to have it. And then our second year, we had our ball at the Daphne Civic Center. And so that was a real nice place to have it as well. And that's where my end of president ended. Now, I'm pretty sure we were the only parading society that were both men and women. And it was, like I say, it was kind of a unique challenge for me. I learned more about women during those 2 years than I had my entire life. Pretty much men kind of like, well, just give me a costume and a beer, let's have a good time. And some of the women, not all, but some of the women would complain about their costumes, the sequins not being right, but, men don't care about that kind of stuff. But it was fun. We had a good time. We got along well with each other. Thankfully, none of the women killed me during the time I was president. And so we would go to Louisiana, too, to Metairie Parade, and where they throw cabbage. I thought that was funny. And then we would go to New Orleans and take bus trips there. We'd also stop at these Mardi Gras warehouses where we'd get our throws at wholesale. And so pretty much how all these organizations operate is you pay dues to be in this, you elect a board, and then also you vote on members to come in. And that's just how they've been working since they started all this stuff in the 1800s, which was founded here in Mobile. I'm going to probably do an episode on the Mobile Mardi Gras, even though there's others out there, because there's some interesting things that I stumbled across that I don't think no one's covered. But anyway, the 2 years I was out, and so this went on a couple more years. Now, I did play one of their balls at the old Ramada Inn down on the Causeway, and in my opinion, that was the perfect place to have one because it had a real large ballroom in there, as large as you could ever imagine. And the good thing about that is you didn't have to worry about being on the road after having too many drinks, if you had that many, and you could just simply walk to your room afterwards. And, of course, Hurricane Ivan came through in 2005, and I believe that's what took it out, and now it's been torn down. And it also had what they call the Elvis room there as well. So Elvis actually stayed at that hotel at one time when he was performing in Mobile, so that's how long that was there. And so the Crew de Spaniards, as far as I know, no longer exist. But you do have these other ones that have sprung up afterwards. Like I say, it wasn't too long after we started La Crew de Spaniards. I think it might have been the very next year that either Apollo Mystics Ladies or the Shadow Barons started in Daphne. I can't remember which came first. And so now they have their parades. And I went to, like I say, the Apollos just the other day, and they had a real nice parade as well. And Chico was in it, of course, and I went to some of their balls in the past, and they really know how to put on a good parade and a good ball. And so there's also been other organizations that sprung up in Fairhope since the KOERs, and then all across Baldwin County as well. So I'm going to keep this short, guys. I just want to kind of put this out there to kind of document some of the history of Spanish Fort. That one time we did have a parading organization here, and maybe some of you young ones might want to get together and do this again. We'll just have to see what the future holds with that. But I want to appreciate every one of you for subscribing to this channel and sharing these videos, because I get no money from YouTube. But I've got a couple other channels out there that I think you'll like as well, especially if you like good music. I got one called The Tribute Band. That's dedicated to pretty much local artists and the bands that tribute the artists that are no longer with us. And I also have another channel called Building Science. That channel will save you a lot of money, of course. And I'll have the links down below, because it's kind of hard to find these two channels because they're so new. So I'll have these links there so you can go to and subscribe to those as well. Thanks, guys. Let the good times roll.